Why is the UAE suddenly rushing to seek protection from Turkey today? What is the single adversary strategy being practiced today to prevent any possible alliance between Turkey and Iran? Can you imagine that 20% of global internet traffic is now at the mercy of what are called the Gulf's Dolphins? Iran officially announces the end of the era of American dominance. Today we will reveal to you the details of Khamenei's secret meeting with the leaders of the Revolutionary Guard, and why the Iranian response that took place today is considered a slap to the Epstein alliance. Stay tuned as we continue. Stay with us. Dear viewers, peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings, and welcome to our renewed meeting today, God willing, in this episode of the Opinion Series, which we always dedicate to following the latest developments and updates of this conflict taking place in the Middle East between Iran and the Epstein alliance. Today, dear viewers, the most remarkable thing in this conflict and in this war is Iran's return to the forefront with its strategy once again in the Gulf region and in the Middle East in general. So the remarkable thing today, dear viewers, and with these moves and these reactions that Iran is showing every time, it's not just a show of force, but rather a clear declaration from Iran that the era of absolute American dominance in the Middle East is over, and now a new era is about to begin. This is also reflected in a number of statements, including those by Iranian military leaders like Shahram Irani and Majid al-Massawi, which I will present to you today. Of course, these are very important statements that might clarify things and show how Iran is truly changing the equation in the region. But even with this, there is something else, because the thing that provokes the most contempt today that has happened in the region is the lack of unity among Islamic forces in such conflicts. And this is exactly what the external adversary always exploits. Zaydad retired more than psychotropic. These hostile parties always rely on a strategy of concentrating aggression on a single opponent. For example, when they escalate confrontation and tension against Iran, they de-escalate with Turkey and try to get closer to it. And when they enter into confrontation and conflict with Turkey, they reduce the intensity of confrontation with Iran and also get closer to Iran. And that's always the case with different countries in the region. And every time, the Iranian side or the Turkish side takes advantage of this opportunity and accepts this rapprochement with the rival, thinking that it's a new chapter that will begin, and so on, while in reality, it's only a matter of time. Of course, when the rival finishes with the Iranian or Turkish file, or the other, he will move on to the Turkish or Iranian file. When he's done with Turkey, he'll move to the Iranian file, and so on with all the files, so they keep increasing. So the strategy is to focus on one rival and not leave any room for cooperation or for these countries to join forces. And this, dear viewers, we have seen ourselves, as observers, we've seen it just in the past few hours and days. When the UAE rushed to seek protection from Turkey or to ask for Turkey's help, in just a moment, all the news was talking about a UAE-Turkey rapprochement. A whole range of agreements in the defense industry, along with economic and trade agreements, talk about Emirati funding heading towards Turkey. The UAE Vice President makes an urgent visit to Turkey, and he is received by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. There is also a phone call between Erdogan and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, and talk about Turkey's full support for the sovereignty and security of the UAE. All these events, all of this happened in just 2 or 3 days. So here, pay close attention that at the same time Iran is threatening the UAE, possibly sending warnings with missiles and drones and so on, and things are heading towards the return of war again, which this time could possibly lead to the end of this state, the UAE, according to the Iranian threats. At the same time, we find that the UAE is racing against time to look for regional countries to defend it, seeking protection from regional countries. So here, pay attention, the matter has shifted from protection by America to protection by regional countries. There was Egypt, which also sent Air Force units to the UAE during this week. And there were these moves with Turkey, which we honestly don't know how they will end, or what exactly the situation is today. Will it end with Turkish forces also being sent to the UAE, or what? So the important thing is that Turkey and the Turkish President Erdogan, with his pragmatic nature, overlooked everything the UAE has done over the past years. And perhaps believing that he is taking advantage of the opportunity to bring in investments and profitable commercial and economic cooperation for Turkey, along with other areas of cooperation, especially with the upcoming elections in Turkey. But in reality, this is exactly just a temporary strategy. The conflict doesn't end. In the end, when things calm down with Iran, these plans to overthrow the Erdogan regime will return again. This is how the situation is being exploited. And this is also what Iran did when Turkey's relations were tense with the United States and also tense with the UAE. Starting from around 2013, at that time the UAE was seeking Iran's support. And it opened up political and economic cooperation with it, and so on, and also cooperated with it regionally on issues like the Syrian issue. So these countries, meaning Iran or Turkey, maybe they act in good faith, as I said, seeking to gain benefits, but the other parties are playing games. I mean with both of them, trying to pit them against each other so they always remain rivals in the arena, at least to prevent them from forming any alliance that could make them a superpower that would swallow up such small states in the region. So this is perhaps an important point that needed to be mentioned today. Today we have very significant developments because there was a very important meeting today. The Iranian Supreme Leader Khamenei gathered with the commander of the Khatam al-Anbiya headquarters, General Bazdar Ali Abdullah, who presented a detailed report on the readiness of the Iranian forces in case of a return to war. He presented to Khamenei the plans and the extent of the capabilities and capacities of the Iranian army in case of a return to war. And he gave him assurances that the army, with all its components, is ready and prepared, and that it has ready plans to strike the targets it will be assigned, and so on. And how the situation might develop, he put Khamenei perhaps in the full picture of the army, so that Khamenei can make an informed decision. What will this upcoming political decision be? How might Iran respond to this proposal presented by America? What will be the level of possible concessions and so on? Therefore, immediately afterwards, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard issued a stern warning, a warning that changes the equation in the region. Why? Because this warning that we will talk about today addresses 2 points that change the rules of the game in this conflict. The first thing is that any interception of any Iranian ship within the framework of this naval blockade imposed by America will make Iran this time not only strike back, not only respond. By striking American military ships in the region, it will make Iran target any objective present in the area, meaning it will strike the UAE, Bahrain, or other countries. Pay close attention, this point is not just a warning but a direct threat. A threat that the principle of an eye for an eye, which Iran has relied on throughout this war, is now targeting high-value objectives, very influential targets, major targets. If you intercept an Iranian ship, an Iranian cargo ship in the region, one of these countries will be struck. This means the level of threat is high. It's a very difficult equation for these countries. We can say that this is a new development, a strong deterrent threat, because now these countries might be the ones pressuring America so that Trump does not intercept Iranian ships and thus lifts the naval blockade in order to avoid facing such a scenario. The second point is also that the Iranian army issued another warning, saying that any country that complies with the American sanctions imposed on Iran will also have sanctions imposed on it by Iran. And the most important of these sanctions is preventing their ships or ships carrying cargo related to these countries from passing through the Strait of Hormuz. So Iran is completely changing the equation here. Iran wants to turn this decision of war, this catastrophic decision that was against Iran, which was made by the Epstein coalition. And its victory in this war is an opportunity to get out of all the problems that Iran has suffered from for many decades. So this restriction will make all the countries that want oil or gas coming from the Gulf or want to sell products will be forced to have normal relations with Iran without any sanctions. Otherwise, these ships and these products will not pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And this is a natural and legal right for Iran, considering that even these sanctions imposed by America on Iran for decades are not legal. They are not international sanctions imposed by the United Nations or anything like that. They are sanctions imposed according to American law, so other countries cannot be obligated to follow them just because America imposed them. So the Iranian response here is clear, legal, and sound, and it will actually make many countries seek Iran's favor and fully normalize their relations with Iran as well. Dear viewers, today we have a new Iranian weapon that has been revealed. In reality, it is not a new weapon, but talking about it and about its use in this conflict is new, for the first time. This weapon is known as the Gulf Dolphins. The weapon consists of submarines of the Ghadir class, which are small in size, with a length not exceeding 30 meters and a width not exceeding 3 meters, carrying only 7 to 11 soldiers on board. In fact, it is specifically designed for shallow and narrow waters, exactly like the Strait of Hormuz, and it is capable of stealth. This submarine, just so everyone knows, had a very important incident in 2015, which is that it was able to approach an American aircraft carrier in 2015, and it took pictures of it without being detected by the American forces. So now, in 2015, maybe it just took a picture. But if the experience is repeated, the results would be disastrous for this carrier, the aircraft, the destroyers, or anything else. And today, what does the Iranian Navy say? They say that these submarines are now present, currently deployed in the waters of the Strait of Hormuz, and are carrying out their full missions without being detected by American forces. Iran has 21 submarines of this type, and the most important feature of these submarines, which I believe is the reason for announcing them today, is this. Of course, it's that they carry naval mines on board, capable of laying these mines in any area at any moment without being detected by enemy forces as well. They also carry naval cruise missiles. And their greatest advantage is that they are small in size, launch the missile from under the sea, and then disappear from sight behind underwater rocks. So this image you are seeing now on the screen is an approximate depiction of what happens in the Strait of Hormuz, where 21 submarines of the Ghadir class are deployed along the edges of the Strait of Hormuz, and perhaps the edges of the Gulf of Oman and so on. These are shallow waters among the rocks, where American destroyers cannot approach. As soon as the American destroyers move to cross the Strait of Hormuz through the middle, they find cruise missiles emerging from the depths of the water. From these submarines, and here we're talking about a large number of them, about 21 submarines, Iran might only need half that number for this mission, meaning 10 submarines would be enough maybe. So this weapon, which was mentioned today by Shahram Irani, was not a coincidence at all. It shows how Iran's weapons in the Strait of Hormuz are very diverse and different. This was also confirmed by Majid Musa, the commander of the Iranian Air Force, in the same way, who spoke about Iran's missile weapons, drones, and so on. There is a great variety of weapons, so in fact there isn't just one weapon, and all of them are low-cost weapons. So America, which owns the most expensive destroyers, the most expensive aircraft carriers, and the largest or nuclear submarines, can't even pass through the Strait of Hormuz where these simple low-cost weapons are deployed. And this is the biggest strategic problem the US military faces today, and they are discussing it now in the Pentagon because the US military invests in military superiority, in massive weapons, in weapons used in conventional confrontations, while it faces great difficulties in such confrontations that occur under certain and different circumstances, different geographical conditions. While Iran has studied its geographical situation very well, where is it located? What are its geographical conditions like, and so on. And it invested in flexible defensive weapons, cheap and extremely effective in this region, and all of them are locally made weapons. Since the end of the war with Iraq, Iran has only bought weapons to reverse engineer them, and as a result, we develop advanced local models of these weapons. Iran knew that this day would actually come. It would definitely come. So it was preparing exactly for this day. And the result is what you see today, dear viewers. I mean, despite many long decades of sanctions, here it is successfully confronting the strongest country in the world. So the real question today is, what if these sanctions didn't exist? I mean, what would Iran look like without these sanctions? Because today, it has achieved very great successes despite all this suffering from sanctions. So what if these sanctions didn't exist? Today, it has reached the point where Iran has also started planning to impose fees on internet cables that pass under the waters of the Strait of Hormuz. The Iranian Fars news agency said that Iran will impose a new system on the Strait of Hormuz, not only above the sea but even under the sea. This means that even regarding these undersea cables, Iran will require foreign companies that use these cables to pay fees for that. The attack is a challenge. Percent of internet traffic and financial transactions that rely on the internet will pass through these cables under the Strait of Hormuz. Iran will even change the global digital map. In fact, the war was a great benefit for Iran, and perhaps you dislike something while it is good for you, because this war revealed the extent of Iran's military capabilities. Western and Arab propaganda media and so on have for many years tried to belittle Iran's military efforts and the weapons that Iran has developed. They used to say that Iran only had weapons just for show, that the missiles were just fireworks, the drones were just toy planes, and so on. They always promoted the idea that Iran couldn't be relied on because it was technologically weak, but this war clarified things and revealed the truth. Therefore, Iran will benefit a lot from this war, because what comes in the future will bring major benefits for Iran. Iran's military capabilities and so on will develop tremendously, and it will also benefit in terms of popularity across the Arab and Islamic worlds and in global South countries and so on. Today, Iran has become a point of admiration for everyone in the world because of this war. I'm not saying that the only mistake Iran made, which was truly a disastrous mistake resulting from poor judgment, was its support for the criminal regime in Syria, Bashar al-Assad. Maybe now it will correct this mistake. And this war has saved Iran's image in the Arab world after it had collapsed because of the events that happened in Syria. So what is also notable today is that Iran has finally responded to this American proposal. And this response did not come on Friday when Trump's deadline ended, when the truce period that Trump extended ended. Iran had said that it was studying the American proposal and that it did not care about these deadlines and was not committed to them. Meaning that it will respond at the time it sees fit for itself, not when Trump sees it as appropriate, meaning that it does not submit to pressure. And if Trump wants to return to war, Iran is ready for it. That was Iran's message. This in itself shows who holds the reins today, who stands in the position of the victor, and who has the ability, or rather the courage, to return to war again. Indeed, the Iranian response only came 2 days after the end of this truce, and it was not an approval, of course. Instead, it included changes to the proposal in line with Iranian interests, and so on. which probably just means ensuring the continuation of this truce, ongoing communication, correspondence, and so on with the Pakistani mediator. Therefore, the situation will remain as it is today for the coming days until matters are resolved and an agreement is reached. That's what we have for today, but we'll see how things develop in the next few hours. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.